I wish I never got adopted. I'm staring at the bank statement in my shaking hands, and the number $847,329.18 burns into my retinas like acid. That's how much money Richard and Diana Blackwell have stolen from me over the past 16 years. My money. My parents' money. The inheritance they died for on that rain-slicked highway in 2007 when I was 6 years old. The law office is empty except for me and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I should be home studying for my organic chemistry midterm, but instead I'm here photocopying documents that prove my entire life has been a lie. My hands won't stop trembling as I feed page after page into the machine, bank transfers, investment statements, tax filings that show exactly how Richard and Diana have been living like royalty off my dead parents' money while I've been working doubles at both the campus dining hall and the downtown coffee shop just to afford ramen and textbooks. The worst part isn't even the money, though $800,000 would solve every financial problem I've ever had. It's the adoption subsidy payments. $2,847 per month, every month, for 16 years. I did the math 3 times because I couldn't believe it. They've collected over $500,000 in government payments for taking care of me, while making me pay my own way since I turned 18. Character building, Diana always said with that practiced smile whenever I complained about working 40 hours a week on top of a full course load. I remember being 12 and begging Richard for new cleats because mine had holes worn through the soles. He told me that money doesn't grow on trees and maybe if I helped out more around the house, we could talk about it. Meanwhile, Diana was planning their 3rd trip to Europe that year. I wore those cleats with cardboard stuffed inside them for 2 more seasons. The paper trail is beautiful in its damning completeness. Monthly withdrawals from something called the Morrison Family Trust. My biological parents were David and Sarah Morrison, always timed perfectly with the Blackwells' major purchases. The BMW in 2019. Trust fund money. The kitchen renovation in 2021. Trust fund money. Richard's boat, Diana's jewelry, their country club membership, all of it paid for with money that was supposed to secure my future. I think about all the times I've called Diana Mom and felt grateful that they chose me. All the family photos where their smiles look so genuine. The way they'd introduce me to their friends as our son Connor, with just enough emphasis on the our to make it sound special instead of possessive. I was their pet project, their tax write-off with a heartbeat. The copying machine jams on page 47, a particularly juicy investment statement showing them moving $50,000 of my money into their personal portfolio. My vision blurs, but not with tears. I'm past crying. This is pure, crystalline rage, the kind that makes your chest tight and your jaw ache from clenching. I have everything I need now. Bank statements, tax documents, adoption records that clearly outline the terms of my trust fund, terms that Richard and Diana have violated in every possible way. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking this evidence to the district attorney's office. By tomorrow night, the Blackwells are going to learn what it feels like to lose everything. But first, I need to go home and pretend to be their grateful adopted son one more time. The house is dark when I pull into the circular driveway at 12:43 a.m., my beat-up Honda Civic looking pathetic next to Richard's gleaming Tesla Model S, purchased, according to the documents in my backpack, with an $89,000 withdrawal from my trust fund last March. I sit in the car for a moment, staring up at the imposing colonial facade that I used to think meant I'd won the adoption lottery. Now it looks like a mausoleum built from my parents' bones. The front door doesn't even creak when I slip inside. Everything in the Blackwell house is perfectly maintained, perfectly silent, perfectly fake. I'm halfway up the mahogany staircase when Diana's voice drifts from the kitchen. Connor. Is that you, sweetheart? My blood turns to ice. She's awake. At almost 1 a.m. on a Wednesday, Diana Blackwell, who hasn't stayed up past 10 p.m. since I've known her, is awake and calling me sweetheart like she actually gives a damn. Yeah, it's me. I force my voice to sound normal, tired from studying instead of homicidal with rage. Just got back from the library. I hear her heels clicking against the marble floor as she moves toward the foyer. Designer heels at 1 a.m. Everything about this feels wrong. Come down here for a moment, would you? Richard and I want to talk to you about something. The documents in my backpack feel like they're burning through the canvas. Do they know? Is that impossible? I was so careful, but maybe. Connor. Diana's voice has that edge it gets when she's not being obeyed immediately. The same tone she used when I was 14 and asked why I couldn't go on the school trip to Washington, D.C. while she was booking another cruise. I walk downstairs like I'm going to my execution. Diana is standing in the kitchen doorway wearing a silk robe that costs more than my monthly rent, her perfectly styled blonde hair not showing a single sign that she was supposed to be sleeping. Richard sits at the kitchen island with a tumbler of what looks like his expensive scotch, the Macallan 25, $2,000 a bottle, purchased with my money, naturally. Sit down, son. Richard's voice has none of its usual fake warmth. This isn't a man who taught me to throw a football or showed up to exactly 3 of my high school baseball games. This is someone I've never seen before. Diana slides a manila folder across the granite countertop. My name is written on the tab in her precise handwriting, Connor Morrison. Not Connor Blackwell. Morrison. My biological parents' name, which I've never used, which has been buried under 16 years of pretending to be their son. We know you've been asking questions, Diana says, settling onto the bar stool across from me. At that little law firm internship of yours. The room spins. My mouth goes dry. I don't know what you're. Marcus Leibovitz called Richard this evening, Diana continues smoothly. Apparently there's been some unusual after-hours activity in their document storage. Security cameras are fascinating things, aren't they? Richard takes a slow sip of my stolen scotch. We think it's time you learn the whole truth about your situation, Connor. The real truth. Not just the parts you think you've figured out. Diana opens the folder, and I can see photographs, legal documents, things I've never seen before. Her smile is sharp enough to cut glass. You see, sweetheart, your biological parents didn't just leave you money. They left you debts. Enormous debts. And we've been protecting you from those creditors for 16 years. My backpack full of evidence suddenly feels very, very light. The photographs Diana slides toward me are police reports. Accident scene documentation. And underneath those, debt collection notices with my biological parents' names at the top and numbers that make my stomach drop. $1.2 million in outstanding medical bills, Diana says, her manicured finger tapping each document. Your mother's cancer treatment. Experimental procedures that insurance wouldn't cover. Your father mortgaged everything, maxed out credit cards, took loans from some very unpleasant people. Richard swirls his scotch, ice clinking against crystal. The trust fund you think we stole. It was collateral, Connor. The creditors would have seized every penny the day you turned 18. We've been making minimum payments to keep them at bay. I grabbed the police report with shaking hands. My father's Honda Accord, wrapped around an oak tree on Highway 47. But there's a detail I never knew. They were driving back from a meeting with a bankruptcy attorney when the accident happened. The date stamp shows they'd filed for Chapter 7 protection 3 days before they died. That's impossible, I whisper, but even as I say it, the numbers are adding up in ways I don't want them to. The bank statements I saw. Show us keeping your head above water, Diana interrupts. Do you think we wanted to spend our evenings juggling payment plans with collection agencies? Do you think Richard enjoyed taking calls from men who described in graphic detail what happens to people who default on certain types of loans? She pulls out more documents. Loan agreements with something called Meridian Capital Solutions. The interest rates are astronomical, 23% compounded monthly. My father's signature is at the bottom, along with a clause that makes me feel sick. All outstanding debts transfer to surviving family members. The adoption subsidies didn't go to us, Connor. Richard's voice is maddeningly calm. Every penny went to your creditors. We've been paying them $3,200 a month for 16 years just to keep you safe. That's not the withdrawals from my trust fund. We're authorized by the bankruptcy court, Diana says, sliding over a legal document stamped with official seals. Emergency disbursements to prevent creditor seizure. We had to spend your money to protect your money. Does that sound insane? Yes. Welcome to the American legal system. My head is spinning. The documents look real. The signatures, the court stamps, the letterheads from law firms and collection agencies, it's all there in black and white. But something about Diana's too perfect explanation makes my skin crawl. Why didn't you tell me? I ask. Because you were a child, Richard says. And children don't need to know that their dead parents left them with debts to people who break kneecaps for a living. Diana reaches across the table and touches my hand with what might be genuine tenderness. We love you, Connor. We've been protecting you your entire life. Those fancy dinners and trips you resent. They were cover. We had to maintain appearances so the creditors would believe we could keep paying. The BMW, the boat. Tax write-offs. Business expenses. Richard's accounting firm requires a certain image. She squeezes my fingers. Everything we've done has been to keep you safe until you could stand on your own feet. I stare at the documents spread across the granite counter. Either my adoptive parents are master manipulators who've just spent an hour constructing an elaborate lie to cover their theft, or I've spent the last 3 weeks planning to destroy the only people who've ever truly protected me. The worst part is, I can't tell which scenario terrifies me more. What happens now? I ask. Richard and Diana exchange a look that could mean anything. What happens now is you make a choice, Richard says, finishing the last of his scotch. The ice clinks against the bottom of the crystal tumbler, a sound that will probably haunt me forever. You can walk away from all of this. Graduate college, start your life clean. Or. He doesn't finish the sentence. Diana does it for him. Or you can dig deeper and discover that some truths are more expensive than lies. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. The creditors we've been paying. They think you died in foster care. It's amazing how much easier debt collection becomes when the debtor simply doesn't exist. My blood turns to ice water. You told them I was dead. We told them you were untraceable, Richard corrects. Lost in the system. It bought us time to restructure the debt, negotiate payment plans. But if you suddenly surface, if you start making legal noise about trust funds and adoption fraud, well, Marcus Leibovitz won't be the only one making phone calls. Diana pulls out one more document from her manila folder. This one makes my stomach drop through the floor. It's a death certificate. My death certificate, dated 6 months after the adoption was finalized. Cause of death listed as complications from pneumonia. This is insane, I whisper, but my hands are shaking as I hold the document. The county seal looks real. The signatures look real. Everything looks real, and that's what scares me most. Connor Morrison died when he was 7 years old, Diana says matter-of-factly. Connor Blackwell has been living a clean life ever since. No debts, no complications, no men with crowbars asking about outstanding payments to Meridian Capital Solutions. Richard stands up, walks to the kitchen window that overlooks their perfectly manicured backyard. The original debt was $1.2 million in 2007. With compound interest and penalties, it's now sitting at just over $4.8 million. Your trust fund was worth $847,000 when we took custody of you. We've stretched that money for 16 years, but it's almost gone. There's about $30,000 left, Diana adds helpfully. Enough for maybe 8 more months of minimum payments before they start looking for someone to collect from in person. I think about the law firm where I've been interning, about Marcus Leibovitz making that phone call to Richard. About security cameras and after-hours document copying and how spectacularly stupid I've been. You planned this, I say slowly. The internship. You wanted me to find those bank records. We wanted you to understand your situation, Richard says. 17-year-olds don't listen to lectures about fiscal responsibility. But 22-year-old pre-med students who think they've uncovered a conspiracy. They pay attention to numbers. Diana slides one final paper across the counter. It's a contract with Hartwell and Associates, a debt consolidation firm. The terms are actually reasonable, $500 monthly payments for 15 years, with the remainder of the debt forgiven upon completion. We can't keep protecting you forever, Connor. But we can give you a choice about how you want to handle your inheritance. The signature line at the bottom has my name typed beneath it. Connor Morrison, not Connor Blackwell. Because apparently, I'm about to come back from the dead. What if I refuse? I ask. Richard and Diana exchange another look. This time, I can read it perfectly. Then Connor Morrison stays dead, Diana says softly. And Connor Blackwell gets to explain to some very unpleasant people why he's been hiding for 16 years. The kitchen clock shows 2:17 a.m. In 5 hours, I'm supposed to be in organic chemistry, taking notes about molecular bonds and reaction mechanisms. Normal college student problems. Instead, I'm holding a pen that will either save my life or destroy it, and I have no idea which choice leads where. I set the pen down without signing and look directly into Diana's perfectly composed face. I want to see the original loan documents. Not copies. Not summaries. The actual paperwork my father signed. Her smile falters for just a fraction of a second, but I catch it. Richard's reflection in the kitchen window goes rigid. Connor, it's nearly 2:30 in the morning. Then we have plenty of time. I lean back in the bar stool, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. If I'm about to legally resurrect myself and take on a $5 million debt, I want to see every signature, every witness statement, every piece of documentation that proves David Morrison actually borrowed this money. Diana's manicured fingers drum against the granite. Those documents are in our attorney's office. We can't just. Marcus Leibovitz has been your family attorney for 12 years, I interrupt. The same Marcus Leibovitz who called to rat me out tonight. Funny how quickly he reached out to warn you, considering attorney-client privilege usually prevents lawyers from discussing their client's business with third parties. Richard turns from the window. His face has gone pale. What are you implying? I'm implying that Marcus Leibovitz isn't your attorney. He's your accomplice. I stand up, leaving the fake death certificate and the debt consolidation contract untouched on the counter. Real creditors don't wait 16 years for payment, especially not the kind of people who break kneecaps. Real collection agencies don't accept minimum payments on million-dollar debts. And real lawyers don't call their clients at midnight to report on their interns' after-hours activities. Diana's composure finally cracks. You don't understand how complicated this situation is. I understand that Meridian Capital Solutions was dissolved by the state of Delaware in 2011 for fraudulent lending practices. The words come out calm and cold. I understand that the bankruptcy filing you showed me has a case number that doesn't exist in a federal database. And I understand that my father's signature on these loan documents looks remarkably similar to Richard's handwriting on the Christmas cards he signs every year. The silence in the kitchen stretches like a taut wire. The refrigerator hums. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticks. Diana and Richard stare at me like I've just grown a second head. When did you become so paranoid? Diana asks, but her voice has lost its motherly warmth. When I realize that parents who supposedly love me have been stealing my inheritance for 16 years. I grab my backpack from the floor. The documents I copied tonight. They're already uploaded to 3 different cloud storage accounts and emailed to myself at 2 different addresses. The copies are hidden somewhere you'll never find them. Richard steps toward me, and for the first time in my life, I see something dangerous in his eyes. Connor, you're making a very serious mistake. The mistake was trusting you. I back toward the kitchen doorway. I know about the shell companies. Blackwell Holdings, Morrison Family Services, Meridian Capital Solutions, all registered to the same address in Delaware, all dissolved within months of each other. You've been moving my money through fake companies and fabricating debt to cover your tracks. Diana stands slowly, her silk robe rustling. Even if that were true, which it isn't, you have no proof that would hold up in court. I have enough proof to get the FBI interested. Financial fraud, tax evasion, falsifying government documents. I count off on my fingers. The adoption subsidy fraud alone carries a 10-year federal sentence. You ungrateful little, Richard starts toward me again, but Diana puts a hand on his arm. Let him go, she says quietly. He'll come back. No, I won't. Diana's smile returns, cold and sharp. Yes, you will. Because tomorrow morning, you're going to realize that destroying us means destroying yourself. The college tuition payments that are due next month. They come from our accounts. Your health insurance. Through Richard's company. That beat-up Honda in the driveway. Registered in our name. She moves closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You can bring down our house of cards, Connor. But you'll be buried in the rubble. I walk out of that kitchen at 2:43 a.m. with Diana's threat echoing in my ears, but I don't go to my room. Instead, I sit in my Honda in the driveway with the engine running and my phone in my shaking hands. The documents in my backpack feel heavier now, not just evidence of theft, but proof that the only parents I've ever known are capable of anything. My first call is to Jessica Chen, my study partner in organic chemistry and the only person I trust completely. She answers on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. Connor. What the hell, it's almost 3 a.m. Jess, I need you to listen carefully. Don't ask questions yet, just listen. I tell her everything, the trust fund, the fake debts, the death certificate with my name on it. By the time I finish, she's wide awake. Jesus Christ, Connor. You need to call the police right now. With what? They've got answers for everything. Fake documents that look real, explanations for every transaction. I lean my forehead against the steering wheel. They're right about one thing, destroying them means destroying my entire life. Everything I have is connected to them. So what's your plan? I stare up at the house where I've lived for 16 years. Richard's silhouette moves past the second-floor window, probably destroying evidence or making phone calls to people I don't want to think about. I'm going to need somewhere to stay. And I'm going to need help. By 4:15 a.m., I'm parked outside Jessica's apartment complex with 2 duffel bags containing everything I actually own, which turns out to be embarrassingly little. Clothes, textbooks, my laptop, and a shoebox of photographs from my biological parents that Diana never knew I had. Everything else in my room belonged to the Blackwell family mythology. Jessica meets me at the door in pajama pants and an oversized Stanford sweatshirt, holding 2 cups of coffee. My roommate's visiting her boyfriend until Thursday. You can crash on the couch, but we need a real plan. I've got one, I say, opening my laptop on her kitchen table. But it's going to get messy. The plan is actually simple, force Richard and Diana to make a mistake. They've spent 16 years building an elaborate lie, but lies require maintenance. Constant attention. And people who are panicking make errors. I start by filing a formal complaint with the state's Adoption Services Department at exactly 8 a.m. Not criminal charges, not yet, but a request for a complete audit of my adoption subsidies and trust fund management. Government bureaucrats love audits, and they have subpoena power. By 8:30, I've submitted a complaint to the IRS reporting suspected tax fraud related to the fake death certificate and shell companies. The IRS moves slowly, but they never stop moving. At 9:15, my phone starts ringing. Richard's name on the screen. Connor, we need to talk. Come home and we can work this out. I am home, I lie, staring out Jessica's apartment window at the parking lot where my Honda sits like a refugee. This is where I live now. Don't be dramatic. You can't survive on your own, you don't have any money. I've got my job at the coffee shop. And the dining hall job. Amazing what you can live on when you're not supporting other people's luxury lifestyle. There's a long pause. When Richard speaks again, his voice has changed. Colder. You have no idea what you're playing with, Connor. Enlighten me. There are people who have been very patient about certain arrangements we've made on your behalf. Your little stunt with the government agencies is going to attract attention we've all been trying to avoid. My blood chills, but I keep my voice steady. What kind of people, Richard? The kind who don't appreciate having their business disrupted by ungrateful children who don't understand how the adult world works. The line goes dead. I stare at the phone, wondering if Richard just threatened me or warned me. With the Blackwells, it's impossible to tell the difference. Jessica emerges from her bedroom dressed for class, but takes one look at my face and sits back down. What happened? I think I just learned that this goes deeper than adoption fraud. I show her the call log, Richard's number, 47 seconds. What if some of this is real? Not the debt, but the people they claim to be protecting me from. Then we get you real protection. Legal protection. She grabs her keys and backpack. I'm skipping biochemistry. We're going to see my cousin David. He's a prosecutor with the district attorney's office. Jess, I can't afford. He owes me a favor. Big favor. Long story involving his ex-wife and some very incriminating photographs. She grins, but it doesn't hide the worry in her eyes. Besides, if the Blackwells are connected to actually dangerous people, we need someone with real authority on our side. As we're walking to her car, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, asterisk stop digging or start running. You have 48 hours, asterisk. I show Jessica the message. Her face goes pale. Okay, she says, unlocking her car with shaking hands. We're definitely seeing David. Right now. The district attorney's office looks exactly like every government building ever constructed, beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and the lingering smell of burnt coffee and bureaucratic despair. Jessica's cousin David Chin turns out to be a sharp-eyed man in his 30s who listens to my entire story without interrupting once. When I finish, he leans back in his chair and studies the documents I've spread across his desk. This is elaborate, he says finally. Either you've uncovered a sophisticated long-term fraud scheme, or someone has gone to incredible lengths to make you think you have. What's the difference? Jessica asks. About 15 years in federal prison, David replies, still scanning the bank statements. Connor, I need you to understand something. If the Blackwells are running the con you think they are, they're not small-time criminals. This level of document fabrication, the shell companies, the government fraud, we're talking about people with serious resources and connections. My phone buzzes again. Another unknown number, 44 hours remaining. David notices me check the message. How many of these have you gotten? 2. Both countdown timers. I show him the texts. Richard mentioned something about arrangements and people who don't like their business disrupted. Jesus. David picks up his office phone and dials an extension. Maria. I need you to run background checks on Richard and Diana Blackwell, DOB unknown, residence at. He rattles off their address from memory. Priority flag. Also run their business entities, Blackwell Holdings, Morrison Family Services. He pauses, listening. Yes, federal database too. When he hangs up, his expression has shifted from professional interest to genuine concern. Connor, I'm going to be direct with you. If the threats are real, you might be in actual physical danger. But if they're fake, if this is psychological manipulation designed to make you back down, then we're dealing with people who understand exactly which pressure points to hit. How do we tell the difference? I ask. We wait for Maria's background check. And we set a trap. David explains his plan over lukewarm coffee and vending machine sandwiches. It's simple, elegant, and absolutely terrifying. I'm going to call Richard and tell him I want to make a deal. I'll stop the government investigations in exchange for a written confession and a payment plan for my actual trust fund balance. If they're legitimate, they'll refuse and probably threaten legal action, David explains. If they're criminals, they'll try to negotiate. Criminals always want to make deals because they think they can control the terms. And if they're criminals connected to actually dangerous people? David's pause lasts too long. Then we find out how deep this goes. At 2:30 p.m., sitting in David's office with Jessica holding one hand and a police detective named Rodriguez taking notes, I call Richard's number. He answers before the first ring finishes. Connor. I was hoping you'd come to your senses. I want to make a deal, I say, proud of how steady my voice sounds. I'll call off the audits. But I want the truth about my trust fund and a written agreement about repayment. That's reasonable. Can you meet us tonight? Neutral location. Bennigan's restaurant on 5th Street. 7 p.m. David nods approvingly, public place, multiple exits, restaurant where Detective Rodriguez's partner will be having dinner at a nearby table. Excellent. Connor. Richard's voice takes on that familiar paternal tone. I'm glad we can work this out as a family. So am I lie. After I hang up, David leans forward with a grim expression. Maria's background check came back. Richard and Diana Blackwell have no financial history prior to 2007. No credit reports, no employment records, no tax filings. It's like they didn't exist before they adopted you. My stomach drops. What does that mean? It means, Detective Rodriguez says quietly, that Richard and Diana Blackwell might not be their real names. The countdown on my phone reads 37 hours when Jessica and I leave the DA's office at 4 p.m. But now the timer feels less like a threat and more like a deadline for something I don't understand yet. Whatever happens tonight at Bennigan's restaurant, I have the feeling I'm about to learn who my adoptive parents really are. And I'm starting to suspect that's going to be worse than anything I've imagined so far. At 6:45 p.m., I'm sitting in Jessica's Honda in the parking lot of Bennigan's restaurant, watching Richard and Diana walk through the front door. Even from 50 yards away, I can see the tension in their shoulders, the way Diana keeps checking her phone. They're scared, and that should make me feel victorious. Instead, it makes my skin crawl. Detective Martinez is already inside, Jessica says, pointing to a nondescript sedan parked near the restaurant's side entrance. And David's monitoring the wire. She touches the small recording device taped under my shirt collar. You sure you're ready for this? I'm not ready for anything. My hands are shaking, my mouth tastes like copper, and the text message I received 20 minutes ago keeps replaying in my head, asterisk last chance to walk away. Some families are worth protecting, asterisk. Let's get this over with, I say, climbing out of the car. Bennigan's is exactly the kind of aggressively normal chain restaurant that nobody pays attention to, plastic plants, laminated menus, and a background hum of conversations that provide perfect cover for recording confessions. Richard and Diana have claimed a corner booth, and they stand when they see me approach. Connor, sweetheart. Diana's smile looks painted on. She's wearing a navy dress that probably costs more than my monthly food budget, but her hands are trembling as she reaches out to hug me. I don't hug back. Shall we sit? Richard gestures to the booth. His usual confidence has cracked around the edges, and I notice he keeps glancing toward the restaurant's exits. We have a lot to discuss. The waitress takes our drink orders, coffee all around, and retreats with obvious relief. The tension at our table could cut glass. You called off your dogs yet? Richard asks without preamble. That depends on what you're willing to tell me. I lean back against the vinyl booth, trying to project calm I don't feel. Starting with your real names. Diana and Richard exchange a look that confirms everything David suspected. When Diana speaks, her voice has lost its practiced maternal warmth. Our names are Richard and Diana Blackwell. Legally. We've been the Blackwells since 2006. And before that? Before that doesn't matter, Richard says firmly. What matters is that we saved your life, Connor. Not just from debt collectors or creditors. From people who would have used a 6-year-old orphan as leverage in business arrangements you couldn't possibly understand. The waitress returns with our coffee, and we all smile and nod like a normal family having a pleasant dinner conversation. The moment she's gone, I lean forward. What kind of business arrangements? Diana wraps her manicured fingers around her coffee cup. Your father wasn't just drowning in medical debt, Connor. He was desperate. Desperate enough to make deals with people who don't typically lend money to suburban insurance adjusters. You mean loan sharks? We mean people who view defaulted loans as business opportunities, Richard corrects. David Morrison owed $1.2 million to legitimate creditors. But he owed another $800,000 to Victor Kozlov, who runs financial services for the Bratva out of Brighton Beach. My blood turns to ice water. The Russian mob. They're talking about the Russian mob. When your parents died, Diana continues quietly, Kozlov's people came looking for collateral. House, cars, insurance policies, and one 6-year-old boy who could be held until family members settled the outstanding debt. That's insane, I whisper, but I'm thinking about the anonymous text messages, the countdown timer, the way Richard keeps checking the exits. We intercepted the situation, Richard says. Arranged the adoption quickly, moved you across the country, created new identities. The Blackwells have clean credit, stable employment, no connection to David Morrison or his debts. So you've been protecting me? We've been protecting all of us, Diana says. But now you've filed complaints with federal agencies. You've created a paper trail that connects Connor Morrison to Connor Blackwell. And Victor Kozlov's people are very, very good at following paper trails. My phone buzzes. New message, asterisk Bennigan's restaurant. Blue Honda Civic. Cornell University parking pass. We see you, asterisk. I show them the text. Richard's face goes white. We need to leave. Right now. Diana stands abruptly, throwing a 20 on the table. Connor, I know you don't trust us, but if we stay here, people are going to die tonight. This is just another manipulation. Richard grabs my arm hard enough to bruise. Look out the window. Black Mercedes SUV that just pulled into the parking lot. 2 men in the front seat who haven't moved to get out and eat dinner. I look. The SUV is there, exactly as he described, and something about the way it's positioned makes every survival instinct I possess start screaming. Jesus Christ, I breathe. Back exit, Diana says urgently. Now. Jessica's car, not yours, they've got your license plate. We stand to leave, and that's when I see Detective Martinez at the counter, paying for coffee he never ordered, his hand resting on his service weapon. Everything happens at once. The front door opens. 2 men in dark suits walk in, moving with predatory precision toward our booth. Martinez steps into their path. Diana grabs my hand and pulls me toward the kitchen. Richard is shouting something about federal agents, and the entire restaurant erupts into chaos. I hear gunshots as we burst through the emergency exit into the alley behind Bennigan's, but I don't look back. Jessica's Honda is running, David Chen behind the wheel instead of Jessica. Get in, he shouts. Federal Safe House, 20 minutes north. As we speed away from the restaurant, sirens wailing behind us, I realize that everything I thought I knew about my situation just changed again. Richard and Diana might be criminals who stole my inheritance. But they also might be the only reason I'm still alive. The safe house turns out to be a nondescript ranch home in a subdivision that screams Witness Protection Program. David parks in the attached garage, and we don't speak until the door closes behind us and Detective Rodriguez emerges from what I assume is a command center disguised as a living room. Martinez is fine, he says before anyone can ask. Took a bullet in the shoulder, but he's stable. The two shooters are in custody, and we recovered some very interesting identification. Richard collapses onto a beige couch that's probably been witness to a dozen other people's shattered lives. Kozlov's men. Dmitry Volkov and Alexei Petrov. Both with outstanding warrants in 3 states. Rodriguez pulls out a tablet, showing us mugshots of the men from the restaurant. They had a kill order with 3 names on it, Connor Morrison, Richard Blackwell, and Diana Blackwell. My legs give out. I sink into a chair that smells like industrial disinfectant and stale fear. A kill order. They were going to murder us over 16-year-old debt. Not debt, Diana says quietly. Revenge. Viktor Kozlov doesn't just want his money back, Connor. He wants to make an example. Your father didn't just default on a loan, he tried to fake his own death to escape it. The car accident was supposed to look like suicide. The room spins. What are you saying? David Morrison drove his car into that tree on purpose, Richard says. He thought if he and your mother were dead, Kozlov would write off the debt as uncollectible. He didn't understand that men like Viktor Kozlov don't accept losses. They collect from family members. They collect from children. Rodriguez sets down his tablet and studies my face. Connor, we've been tracking the Kozlov organization for 8 years. The Blackwells contacted the FBI in 2007 claiming they had information about money laundering operations in exchange for witness protection. You're federal informants. I stare at Richard and Diana like I've never seen them before. We were small time, Diana admits. Richard ran a bookkeeping service for cash businesses that didn't ask questions. I managed offshore accounts. When we heard about a 6-year-old boy who was about to disappear into Kozlov's operation, we saw an opportunity. To save me or to save yourselves? Richard's laugh is bitter. Both. We gave the FBI everything we knew about Kozlov's money movement, and they gave us new identities and a child who needed parents. It seemed like perfect symmetry. Except you've been stealing my inheritance for 16 years, I say. We've been using your inheritance to keep all 3 of us alive, Diana corrects. Do you think witness protection is free? New identities, relocated twice when Kozlov's people got too close, private security for your school events. Where do you think that money came from? Rodriguez opens a manila folder thick with financial documents. Your trust fund currently holds $127,000. The Blackwells have spent approximately $720,000 on legitimate protection expenses over 16 years. They've actually operated at a loss. My brain can't process the numbers. The adoption subsidies went directly to the U.S. Marshal Service, Rodriguez continues. Witness protection isn't a charity, Connor. Families pay their own way, and guardianship subsidies are considered part of that payment. I think about the BMW, the vacations, the country club membership. What about their lifestyle? The expensive cars and trips? Cover, Richard says simply. Viktor Kozlov's people look for families who are struggling, hiding, living below their means. Wealthy adoptive parents with a successful business and expensive tastes. We're invisible to them. Diana pulls out her phone and shows me a photo I've never seen, me at age 7, asleep in the back seat of a car, while she and Richard keep watch through the windshield. Both of them look exhausted, terrified, but determined. This was taken 3 days after we moved you from Oregon to Connecticut, she says. Kozlov's men had tracked us to a motel outside Portland. We drove for 18 hours straight to stay ahead of them. My phone buzzes. Another message, asterisk the boy's protection ends at midnight. Deliver him to Pier 47 or watch your new family die slowly, asterisk. Rodriguez reads the message over my shoulder and immediately makes a phone call. We need tactical teams at Pier 47. Full surveillance, no approach until my signal. They're never going to stop, I realize. Even if we give them money, even if we disappear again, Viktor Kozlov is going to keep hunting us. Richard and Diana exchange another look, but this time it's different. This time, it looks like a decision. Not all of us, Richard says quietly. Connor, there's something else you need to know about your father's debt. The reason Kozlov won't let this go. Diana closes her eyes like she's preparing to confess something terrible. Your father didn't just borrow money from Viktor Kozlov. He stole it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'm gripping the arms of the witness protection chair so hard my knuckles have gone white, staring at Diana's face as she delivers the final piece of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. What do you mean he stole it? Richard runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I've seen 1,000 times when he's trying to figure out how to explain something complicated. Except this time, he's not explaining why I can't get a car for my 16th birthday or why my college fund is smaller than expected. This time, he's explaining why the Russian mob has been trying to kill me for 16 years. Your father worked for Meridian Financial Services, the real one, not the shell company we created, Richard says. He was their senior accountant. Had access to client escrow accounts, investment portfolios, offshore holdings. Detective Rodriguez pulls out another thick folder. David Morrison embezzled $2.3 million from Kozlov's operation over an 18-month period. Small amounts, spread across dozens of accounts, designed to look like investment losses and administrative fees. My head is spinning. So the medical debt was real, Diana confirms. Your mother's cancer treatment did cost over $1 million. But your father didn't borrow money to pay for it. He stole money. From Viktor Kozlov. Who is not the kind of man you steal from and expect to live. When Kozlov's people figured out what was happening, Rodriguez continues, David Morrison had about 72 hours before they came for him. He moved the stolen money into the trust fund account we found, made it look like a legitimate inheritance structure, and then drove his car into a tree to avoid facing the consequences, I finish. The room feels like it's tilting. Everything I thought I knew about my parents, my biological parents, just shifted again. Diana leans forward, her voice gentle but urgent. Connor, your father wasn't a monster. He was desperate, watching the woman he loved die because they couldn't afford experimental treatments. He made a terrible choice, but he made it out of love. He made it and then abandoned me to deal with the aftermath. My voice sounds hollow even to my own ears. Viktor Kozlov doesn't want his money back. He wants revenge for being made to look weak. Exactly. Richard's phone buzzes. He checks it and his face goes pale. We have a problem. Jessica's missing. My blood turns to ice. What do you mean missing? Rodriguez is already on his radio, calling for tactical units, but Richard holds up the phone so I can see the message he just received. * bring the Morrison boy to Pier 47 at midnight. Come alone or the girl starts losing fingers. You have 3 hours. *. Below the text is a photograph that makes my stomach lurch. Jessica, duct tape over her mouth, zip tied to a metal chair in what looks like a warehouse. Her eyes are wide with terror, but she's alive. There's a timestamp in the corner, 9:17 p.m. 23 minutes ago. How did they get her? I'm on my feet, pacing the small living room like a caged animal. She was supposed to be at her apartment, safe. Kozlov's people have been watching all of us for weeks, Rodriguez says grimly. Probably since you filed those government complaints. They needed leverage, and Jessica was the easiest target. Diana stands up, her composure finally cracking completely. Connor, I know you hate us. I know you think we're criminals who stole your childhood. But please, don't let them hurt that girl because of choices your father made 20 years ago. My phone rings. Unknown number, but I know who it is before I answer. Connor Morrison. The voice is heavily accented, patient, almost polite. My name is Viktor Kozlov. I believe we have business to discuss. Let Jessica go. She has nothing to do with this. Kozlov's laugh is like ice cracking. Your father thought he was very clever, stealing from me to pay for his wife's medical bills. Noble, perhaps. But theft is theft, and debts must be paid. I'll give you the money. The trust fund, whatever's left. The trust fund contains stolen money, Kozlov interrupts. Money that has been earning interest in my absence. The current value of your father's theft, with compound interest over 16 years, is $8.7 million. The number hits me like a physical blow. I don't have $8 million. No. But you have something more valuable. You have the ability to close a very old book. Your father humiliated me, Mr. Morrison. Made me look weak to my associates. That kind of insult requires a specific response. What kind of response? The kind that ensures no one ever steals from Viktor Kozlov again. Rodriguez is frantically coordinating with tactical teams, but I can see the hopelessness in his expression. Pier 47 is a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Perfect for ambushes, terrible for rescue operations. If I come to the pier, I say into the phone, you let Jessica go. If you come to the pier, Mr. Morrison, your friend dies quickly instead of slowly. This is the only mercy I am prepared to offer. The line goes dead. I look around the witness protection safe house, at Richard and Diana, who have spent 16 years lying to me and protecting me in equal measure, at Detective Rodriguez, who represents a justice system that can't reach into every dark corner, at the tactical radio broadcasting urgent coordinates that probably won't matter. Jessica has been in Kozlov's hands for 37 minutes. Every second we spend planning is a second she spends terrified, hurt, waiting for rescue that might never come. There has to be another way, Diana says desperately. Connor, if you go to that pier. If I don't go, Jessica dies because of my family's mistakes. I grab my jacket from the back of the chair. I've spent my whole life paying for things other people did. Might as well make it count for something. Rodriguez steps in front of the door. I can't let you leave. You're a federal witness under protection. Then you better figure out how to protect Jessica too. I meet his eyes. Because with or without FBI approval, I'm going to Pier 47. The standoff in the safe house living room stretches for exactly 47 seconds before Richard Blackwell does something I've never seen him do in 16 years. He makes a decision that puts someone else's safety above his own. There's a third option, he says quietly, pulling out a burner phone I didn't know he carried. Victor, this is Richard Blackwell. I know you're listening to this line. Rodriguez lunges for the phone, but Richard steps away. I have something you want more than Connor Morrison's blood. A pause. Then Kozlov's voice crackles through the speaker, amused. The bookkeeper wishes to negotiate. How refreshing. I have the original transfer records from David Morrison's embezzlement. Bank routing numbers, account passwords, offshore shell companies, everything your people have been looking for since 2007. Richard's voice is steady, but sweat beads on his forehead. The FBI doesn't know about these records. They think we gave them everything. My jaw drops. Diana stares at her husband like she's never seen him before. You're lying, Kozlov says, but there's interest in his tone. Account number 847-229-156 at Cayman International Holdings. David Morrison moved $900,000 through that account in March 2007. Your people never found it because the account is registered under Sarah Morrison's maiden name, Sarah Elizabeth Garrett. Richard rattles off a string of numbers that sound like routing codes. There's another $1.3 million in 3 different Swiss accounts, all accessible with the passwords David gave me before he died. The silence on the phone stretches so long I wonder if Kozlov hung up. Then, you have 30 minutes to prove these accounts exist. Pier 47, Warehouse C. Come alone. Richard, what the hell are you doing? Diana grabs his arm. Those accounts don't exist, we would have found them years ago. Richard's smile is grim. They exist. David Morrison gave me the access codes the day before the accident. I've been sitting on $2.2 million for 16 years, waiting for the right moment to use it. Rodriguez steps forward, his radio crackling with tactical updates. Mr. Blackwell, if you're withholding evidence in a federal investigation. I'm saving 3 lives, Richard interrupts. Kozlov gets his money back, Jessica goes free, and Connor doesn't have to die paying for his father's mistakes. My phone buzzes. Another message, this time with a photo that makes my stomach clench. Jessica, still alive but with a fresh bruise on her left cheek. The timestamp reads 10:43 p.m. They're hurting her, I say, showing the image to everyone in the room. Diana grabs Richard's jacket from the chair. I'm going with you. Like hell you are. Viktor Kozlov has been the shadow over our family for 16 years, she says firmly. If we're finally ending this, we end it together. Rodriguez makes one more attempt at authority. This is a federal operation now. We have tactical teams moving into position. Your tactical teams will get Jessica killed, Richard says bluntly. Kozlov doesn't fear the FBI. He fears losing face in front of his organization. But if we can give him a victory, his money returned, his reputation restored, he might be satisfied with that instead of blood. At 11:07 p.m., I watch Richard and Diana Blackwell walk out of the safe house and climb into an unmarked sedan that Rodriguez provided. They look like two people driving to their own execution, but they also look like parents protecting their child. Which, despite everything that's happened, is apparently what they are. Rodriguez hands me a communication earpiece. We'll have eyes on the warehouse, but Connor, if this goes wrong, there won't be anything we can do. Through the earpiece, I hear Richard's voice as they drive toward the pier. Diana, if we don't make it out of this. We will, she interrupts. We've kept Connor safe for 16 years. We're not stopping now. At 11:23 p.m., their sedan disappears into the industrial maze of Pier 47, and all I can do is wait and listen and pray that the parents who stole my inheritance are about to save my life one more time. The earpiece crackles with static as Richard and Diana's sedan pulls into the warehouse district. Through the grainy audio feed, I can hear car doors slamming, footsteps on concrete, and then Viktor Kozlov's voice, clearer now and somehow more terrifying in person. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwell. How refreshing to finally meet face to face. I'm pacing the safe house living room while Rodriguez monitors 3 different radio frequencies and a laptop showing thermal imaging from FBI surveillance drones. The warehouse appears as a cluster of orange and red shapes on the screen, human figures moving through the building like deadly constellations. Where's the girl? Richard's voice comes through my earpiece, steady but tight with controlled fear. Safe. For now. Kozlov sounds almost conversational. Show me the account information. There's a rustling sound, papers being exchanged. I grip the arms of my chair, knowing that somewhere in that warehouse, Jessica is zip-tied and terrified while my adoptive parents gamble everything on 16-year-old secrets. These routing numbers, Kozlov says after what feels like an eternity. They correspond to accounts we've been tracking since 2009. How did Morrison give you access? He knew he was going to die. Diana's voice joins the conversation, and I'm surprised by how calm she sounds. The night before the accident, David called Richard. Said if anything happened to him, we should use the money to protect Connor. Touching. Kozlov's tone shifts, becoming sharper. But David Morrison stole $2.3 million from my organization. These accounts contain only $2.2 million. Where is the remaining $100,000? My blood turns to ice. Rodriguez looks up from his laptop, meeting my eyes with an expression that confirms my worst fear. The math doesn't add up. Richard's voice comes through the earpiece, strained now, medical expenses. David spent the difference on Sarah's final treatments before he decided to play dead rather than face consequences. Kozlov's footsteps echo through the warehouse. I'm afraid incomplete restitution is not restitution at all, Mr. Blackwell. Viktor, be reasonable, Diana says, and I can hear the desperation creeping into her voice. We've returned your money, we've brought you the information you wanted. You've brought me most of my money. And most of a victory is still a defeat. Rodriguez suddenly bolts upright, pressing his hand against his own earpiece. Tactical reports movement on the warehouse's east side. 3 vehicles, at least 8 additional personnel. Through my earpiece, I hear new voices, Russian accents, rapid conversations that sound like orders being given. Whatever negotiation Richard and Diana were attempting just became something much more dangerous. It seems we have additional guests, Kozlov announces. Mr. Blackwell, did you perhaps inform the authorities of our meeting? No, Richard says quickly. Viktor, we came alone, exactly as you requested. The sound of metal slamming against concrete cuts him off. Then Jessica's voice, muffled but unmistakably terrified, Connor. Connor, if you can hear this, don't come here. It's a trap. They're not going to let any of us. Her words are cut off abruptly. When Kozlov speaks again, his voice has gone cold as Arctic wind. It appears your son has been more resourceful than expected. No matter. We'll simply accelerate our timeline. Rodriguez is shouting into his radio, all units move in now. Repeat, all tactical units converge on Warehouse C immediately. Through the surveillance drone feed, I watch orange figures scatter through the warehouse like disturbed ants. Vehicles racing through the industrial complex. The thermal imaging can't tell me who's who, but I can see at least 15 people moving through that building, and 4 of them are the people I care about most in the world. My phone buzzes with one final message, asterisk the sins of the father have come due. Pier 47 burns at midnight, asterisk. The timestamp reads 11:51 p.m. I look at Rodriguez, who's coordinating the FBI response while watching his tactical teams race against time through a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Then I look at the sedan keys he left on the kitchen counter. Detective Rodriguez, I say, grabbing the keys. Sometimes the only way to save your family is to join them. Before he can stop me, I'm out the door and running toward the car, knowing that everything I've learned about love, betrayal, and family is about to be tested in the next 9 minutes. The FBI sedan handles like a tank, but I push it as hard as I can through the empty streets toward Pier 47. Rodriguez's voice crackles through the radio, alternating between furious orders to his tactical teams and increasingly desperate attempts to reach me on the comm system. Connor, turn around right now. You're going to get everyone killed. But I can't turn around. Through the earpiece, I heard something in the last 30 seconds that Rodriguez missed, a sound like industrial equipment starting up, followed by Viktor Kozlov saying something in Russian that made his men laugh. Whatever they're planning for midnight, it's not just about settling old debts anymore. 11:54 p.m. 6 minutes. The warehouse district looms ahead like a concrete maze designed by someone who hated humanity. Shipping containers stacked 3 stories high create narrow corridors perfect for ambushes. Overhead cranes cast shadows that look like mechanical spiders in the harsh sodium lighting. I kill the headlights and coast toward Warehouse C, parking behind a cluster of containers marked with Cyrillic letters I can't read. The earpiece has gone silent except for occasional bursts of static, which probably means either the signal is being jammed or everyone I care about is already dead. Moving through the container yard feels like navigating a life-size chessboard where I'm the only piece that doesn't know the rules. Every shadow could hide one of Kozlov's men. Every sound, metal settling, whine through the crane rigging, distant sirens, makes my heart hammer against my ribs. The side entrance to Warehouse C is propped open with a concrete block. Too convenient. Too obvious. Exactly the kind of trap that someone would set for a desperate college student trying to rescue his family and his best friend. I go through it anyway. The warehouse interior is a cathedral of industrial decay, 60-foot ceiling supported by steel beams, empty loading docks that echo every footstep, and the chemical smell of rust and old motor oil. Emergency lighting casts everything in sickly yellow pools separated by vast areas of darkness. Voices carry from the far end of the building. Russian, English, and what sounds like someone crying. I move toward the sounds, staying close to the wall, trying not to think about how many ways this can go wrong. Told you the accounts were legitimate, Richard's voice, strained but still defiant. We've given you everything David Morrison stole. Let the kids go. Everything. Kozlov's laugh echoes off the concrete walls. Mr. Blackwell, you disappoint me. Did you think I wouldn't discover the Meridian Capital Shell Company? The fake documentation you created to hide additional transfers. My blood freezes. More money. More complications. That was operational security, Diana says. We had to make it look like Connor's trust fund was being managed legitimately. You had to make it look like you weren't stealing from the boy while stealing from me. Kozlov's footsteps move across the concrete. But the Meridian Capital accounts contained another $340,000 of my money, didn't they? Money you've been spending on your comfortable suburban lifestyle. I edge closer, staying in the shadows between loading bays, until I can finally see them. Richard and Diana stand with their hands zip-tied behind their backs near a collection of oil drums that wasn't visible on the thermal imaging. Jessica sits in a metal chair from the photo, conscious but with fresh blood on her lip. And Victor Kozlov. Victor Kozlov looks nothing like I expected. He's maybe 55, wearing an expensive gray suit that wouldn't look out of place at Richard's country club. Distinguished silver hair, gold-rimmed glasses, the kind of man you trust to manage your investment portfolio. Right up until you notice the two men flanking him with assault rifles, and the industrial equipment humming in the corner that I now realize is an incinerator. 11:57 p.m. The beauty of this location, Kozlov says conversationally, is that everything burns. Evidence, witnesses, inconvenient loose ends. By tomorrow morning, the Morrison family debt will be permanently resolved. He checks an expensive watch. 3 minutes until midnight, Mr. Blackwell. Would you care to tell me where my remaining $340,000 is, or shall we begin with the girl? That's when I step out of the shadows, my hands raised, and say the words that will either save everyone I love or get us all killed. The money's not missing, Victor. It's right here. The words hang in the warehouse air like smoke from a gun barrel. Victor Kozlov turns toward me with the casual interest of a man who's been expecting this moment, while Richard and Diana's faces cycle through horror, relief, and terror in rapid succession. Connor Morrison, Kozlov says, removing his gold-rimmed glasses to clean them with a silk handkerchief. Right on time. Though I confess, I'm curious about your mathematics. The missing $340,000 is here. In what form? My mouth is desert dry, but I force the words out. In me. My college tuition, living expenses, everything the Blackwells have paid for over the years, it adds up to exactly what you're looking for. It's a complete lie. I have no idea if the math works, but I'm betting that Victor Kozlov is the kind of man who appreciates dramatic gestures more than precise accounting. Fascinating. Kozlov replaces his glasses and studies me like I'm an interesting specimen. You're proposing to pay your father's debt with, what? Your future earning potential. I'm proposing to end this. I take another step forward, acutely aware that the two men with assault rifles have shifted to keep me in their sight lines. David Morrison stole from you. Richard and Diana have been managing the fallout for 16 years. But I'm the one who inherited the consequences, so I should be the one who settles them. Jessica makes a sound behind her duct tape that might be my name. Richard is shaking his head frantically, but Diana. Diana is watching me with an expression I've never seen before. Something that might actually be pride. Connor, you brilliant, stupid boy, she says quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I keep my eyes on Kozlov. Victor, you said this was about respect. About making sure no one ever steals from you again. Killing 3 adults and a college student in a warehouse doesn't send that message. It just makes you look like you couldn't recover a debt from a dead insurance adjuster. One of Kozlov's men says something in rapid Russian. Kozlov holds up a hand to silence him. Continue, he says to me. But letting the thief's son voluntarily walk into your organization to work off the debt. That sends the right message. Shows you're reasonable but implacable. Shows you always collect, no matter how long it takes. The warehouse falls silent except for the hum of the incinerator and the distant sound of sirens that seem to be getting closer. Kozlov checks his watch again. 11:59 p.m. You're proposing indentured servitude, he says thoughtfully. 7 years of labor to pay off $340,000 plus accumulated interest. Approximately $75,000 per year in services rendered. I'm proposing a solution that lets everyone walk out of here alive. Everyone except you. I think about Jessica tied to that chair, about Richard and Diana who spent 16 years protecting me from exactly this moment, about the parents I never knew who died trying to save a life and inadvertently destroyed several others. Everyone except me, I agree. Kozlov walks to the warehouse window and looks out at the industrial complex, where red and blue lights are now clearly visible moving between the shipping containers. FBI tactical teams, probably less than 2 minutes away. Your federal friends are persistent, he observes. Unfortunately, they're also predictable. He pulls out his phone and types a brief message. 30 seconds later, explosions echo from multiple locations around the warehouse complex, not large enough to kill anyone, but definitely large enough to block the access roads with burning vehicles and debris. That should buy us the time we need for proper negotiations, Kozlov says, turning back to our group. His watch reads exactly midnight now, and he smiles like a man who's just won a very long game. Connor Morrison, you have presented me with an interesting proposition. But I'm afraid the terms require some adjustment. The incinerator shuts off with a mechanical wheeze that sounds like the building itself sighing. The debt your father incurred was not simply financial. It was personal. And personal debts require personal payment. He nods to his men, who step forward with additional zip ties. 7 years of service, as you suggested. But not just from you. The zip ties bite into my wrists as Kozlov's men secure Richard and Diana beside me. Jessica remains in her chair, eyes wide above the duct tape, but I can see her working at something behind her back, maybe the zip ties, maybe a plan of her own. 7 years from each of you, Kozlov continues, pacing in front of us like a professor delivering a lecture. The boy works for my organization directly. The Blackwells continue their money laundering operations, but now exclusively for my benefit. And the girl. He glances at Jessica. The girl ensures everyone's continued cooperation. The explosions outside have stopped, but I can hear shouting, vehicles moving, the organized chaos of a federal response dealing with unexpected obstacles. Rodriguez and his tactical teams are out there somewhere, but they might as well be on the moon. Victor, Diana says, her voice steady despite everything, you have your money back. You have your reputation restored. What more do you need? I need the world to understand that stealing from Victor Kozlov has consequences that last generations. He checks his expensive watch again, 12:04 a.m. Your son will learn this lesson. His children will learn this lesson. The debt continues until I decide it's paid. That's when Jessica does something that changes everything. The duct tape falls away from her mouth, and instead of screaming or pleading, she says in a perfectly calm voice, Agent Chin, FBI. Victor Kozlov, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, and racketeering. The warehouse goes dead silent. Everyone stares at Jessica, who is no longer struggling with zip ties but instead revealing a small recording device that was apparently hidden in her sleeve the entire time. What? Kozlov's composure cracks for the first time tonight. Jessica Chen, UC Berkeley pre-law student, daughter of District Prosecutor David Chen, and FBI informant for the last 6 months. She stands up from the chair, the zip ties falling away like props in a magic show. Did you really think Connor was smart enough to find all those financial records on his own? My brain refuses to process what I'm hearing. Jess, what the hell? The entire Morrison Trust Fund investigation was a federal operation, she continues, her eyes never leaving Kozlov's face. We've been building a case against your money laundering network since March. Connor was never supposed to confront you directly, but when he went rogue tonight, we had to adapt. Kozlov's men raised their weapons, but Jessica holds up her hand. I've been transmitting everything for the last 40 minutes. Every word, every threat, every admission of guilt. And those explosions you triggered? They weren't blocking FBI access, they were shaped charges designed to seal the warehouse exits. You're not keeping us in, Victor. We're keeping you in. The main warehouse doors burst open simultaneously from 3 different directions. FBI tactical teams flood the space with military precision, red laser sights dancing across Kozlov's chest as federal agents surround his men. Drop your weapons. Federal agents. The surrender happens faster than I expected. Kozlov's men lower their rifles without firing a shot, hands raised, expressions resigned. Professional criminals who understand when a situation has shifted beyond recovery. Victor Kozlov himself stands perfectly still in the center of the chaos, looking at Jessica with something that might be admiration. Impressive, he says quietly, as Agent Rodriguez approaches with handcuffs. I admit, I didn't see this coming. The Kozlov organization has been under federal surveillance for 2 years, Rodriguez says, securing the handcuffs. Tonight was just the final act. As the tactical teams process Kozlov's men and secure the warehouse, I find myself staring at Jessica, my study partner, my closest friend, apparently an undercover federal informant who just saved all our lives. How long? I ask. Since your internship started, she admits, looking genuinely apologetic. The FBI needed someone close to you, someone who could monitor the investigation and make sure you didn't get killed stumbling around in Kozlov's business. Richard and Diana are having their zip ties cut by federal agents, both of them looking as stunned as I feel. So the adoption fraud, Diana says slowly, the government complaints Connor filed. All part of the operation, Rodriguez confirms. We needed Kozlov to believe Connor was acting independently, pursuing a legitimate grievance. It made him careless, overconfident. And my inheritance? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Jessica pulls out an official-looking document from somewhere in her jacket. The Morrison Family Trust currently holds $847,329.18. Every penny your parents left you, plus 16 years of investment growth. The Blackwells never stole anything, Connor. They've been protecting your money and your life under federal supervision since 2007. I look at Richard and Diana, who spent 16 years letting me believe they were criminals rather than revealing they were heroes. Who endured my resentment, my accusations, my complete failure to understand the sacrifice they were making. Why didn't you tell me? I ask. Diana wipes tears from her eyes, smiling for the first time in hours. Because children shouldn't have to know their parents are in witness protection. Because you deserved a normal life, even if we couldn't have one. And because, Richard adds, putting his arm around his wife, sometimes protecting someone means letting them hate you for all the right reasons. At 12:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning in November, Victor Kozlov and 8 members of his organization are loaded into federal transport vehicles. The warehouse that was supposed to be our crematorium becomes the site of the largest organized crime bust in the district's history. And I finally understand that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones willing to be the villains in your story, right up until the moment you need them to be heroes. Jessica drives me back to her apartment in her Honda, the same car we sat in 6 hours ago planning to expose what we thought was adoption fraud. My inheritance paperwork sits in my lap, legitimate, legal, and more money than I ever imagined having. So what happens now? I ask as we pull into her parking lot. Now you go to medical school, she says, grinning. And I finish my criminology degree and hopefully get accepted to the FBI Academy. And Richard and Diana? They get to stop being the Blackwells and go back to being whoever they were before Victor Kozlov made their lives hell. She turns off the engine. They get to be your parents without looking over their shoulders. I look up at her apartment building, thinking about how much my life has changed in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, I thought I was an orphan whose adoptive parents had stolen his inheritance. Tonight, I discovered I'm the son of two people who sacrificed everything to keep me safe, protected by a best friend who risked her life to save mine. Jess. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For saving us. She reaches over and squeezes my hand. That's what families do, Connor. They save each other. As we walk up to her apartment, I realize that the title I've been living under, wishing I'd never been adopted, was based on a fundamental misunderstanding. I wasn't adopted by criminals who stole my inheritance. I was adopted by heroes who saved my life and spent 16 years paying the price for that choice. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I can honestly say I'm grateful to be Connor Blackwell, son of Richard and Diana, protected by people who loved me enough to let me hate them. Some families are born. Some are made. And some are forged in federal warehouses at midnight by people willing to die for each other. I finally know which kind of family I have. And I've never been more proud to belong to it.